Hey everyone, it's Jenny.
And Angie, hi.
And we are
Terror in the Tri-State. And we're going to cover crimes, murders, conspiracies, and mysteries that happen in the wonderful, creepy area where Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia meet.
An area that we are very familiar with as we've lived here our whole life.
Yes.
So, our very first case, which is going to be titled The Murdered FBI Informant, we're going to go back to Pikeville, Kentucky, back in the 80s. So this case starts with a woman, and her name is Susan Daniels. She's later known as Susan Daniels Smith. She was born in, I believe, the 60s in Matwan, West Virginia, to a Sid and Tracy Daniels. Was that right?
Yes.
Okay. And they were a struggling family. I believe she was the fifth of 9 children, which back in those days, a lot of people, they had a lot of kids, not a lot of income. It's very common in our area, especially back in that time period. So eventually her parents moved when she's an infant to Freeburn, Kentucky, which is very close to Pikeville, Kentucky. So she went to school but dropped out in 7th grade to help out with the family. They were having financial difficulties. And so in 1977, when she was 15, she met her future husband. His name was Kenneth Smith, and he was 22.
So he was a bit older than her.
Yes, which is also common even to this day in this area for that kind of age gap. So, Kenneth was a local drug dealer. He dealt meth, PCP, I believe cocaine. So they married, they had 2 kids together. Their relationship was very tumultuous, and you know, if you have kids, you mix in drugs, you mix in not having a lot of income, that's not a good combination. So, they got a divorce, but they did end up living together.
For the sake of the kids and the income situation, sometimes it's just easier just to live together. That way the kids are under one roof and you don't have to worry about who's going to pay the electric and whatnot.
All that kind of stuff. So, again, still kind of common in our area today too. Being divorced, still living together. It happens. So, in 1987, Susan, Kenneth, and their kids, they had a couple stay with them. They were friends of Kenneth, and this guy was named his name was Carl Cat Eyes Lockhart, and his girlfriend Sherry. Now, Cat Eyes was a ex-convict. He had a really long rap sheet, and he also liked to rob banks.
That was his specialty, bank robbery.
Yes. So, you know, Susan is not very thrilled that she's having, you know, an ex-convict in her house.
Around the children.
You know, it's not a good look. Not a good look. Nobody wants that. So, Susan does have a good friend in the local sheriff. His name is Bert Hatfield, and he knew the FBI was coming in to investigate these bank robberies. So, he suggested to Susan to make a little bit of money. Why doesn't she become an informant?
Right, and that's a lot of money back in those days. Risky, but it would be very hard to say no. And
she could possibly get out of the situation she's currently in.
Right.
So, in comes the new FBI agent. He is freshly graduated out of the academy. His name is Mark Putnam. Now, Mark was born back in 1959. He studied criminology at the University of Tampa, and he graduated the FBI Academy in 1986. And his first assignment, they sent him to little old Pikeville, Kentucky. So, could you imagine being a new FBI agent and your first assignment is in Pikeville, Kentucky? Okay. So, Mark was married. He had 2 kids, so he's gung-ho. He's wanting to solve this case. You know, it's his first case on the books. He's going to figure it out. He's going to solve it. So, he ends up meeting with Susan, and she gives him very credible information on these bank robberies that are going on. She has the scoop. She knows what banks they're going to hit. She has all the inside information because the bank robber is
cat eyes. So,
and living in the house. So she's got
Exactly.
all the information. So if she has this information and it's good information, she will be paid $5,000. So back in the 80s, that's a lot of money. It's like the equivalent of like $11,000 today.
right.
And so the only bad thing about this, and if you're an FBI informant, snitch, narc, whatever you want to call it, she has to testify in open court. So she's going to become a known informant.
And a known snitch. And that can be a very, very bad look for someone, especially in the tri-state area.
So with her information, of course, Cat Eyes, he gets locked up in jail. He gets 45
convicted.
years. Yeah,
Yep,
40,
convicted.
45 years in prison. And he knows how he got busted. He knows
It was her.
Yeah, he knows it's Susan, and he isn't shy about letting people know that,
He wants her dead.
He wants her dead, doesn't care if she's dead. His girlfriend Sherry was very upset at the time too, because that's her boyfriend. She doesn't want him in jail, that's how it goes. So now I've read this on a couple of things, and I've watched a couple of shows about it, which I'll mention towards the end of the video. But I've heard that Susan liked being an informant. She liked the attention of it. She liked being known that she was, which is kind of a scary thing if you think about it. But if she was happy about it and she wanted to blab about it, that's her prerogative. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and a lot of that could just be hearsay if people just
talk.
said that. Right.
Yeah. So, Susan's ex-husband Kenneth thought that Susan was possibly having an affair with this FBI agent.
Mark Putnam.
He was, new FBI agent. He was good looking.
He thought he was a hot shot, new, coming up the ranks, was going to be big time in the FBI.
He just got his first bust. He gets assigned again to another case in Kentucky, I believe in the Pikeville area, and it's a chop shop, which is basically a car theft ring. They're stealing car parts. They're putting parts on one vehicle to another vehicle.
Which it still goes on to this day in places, but so he got that bust, and I think that was a good bust, and then he had to leave. Didn't he get transferred?
Well, he does eventually leave. Susan is always, asking him, hey, what can I help with? What can I help with? And he sends her off to another FBI agent working the area, and his name is Ron Poole.
So Mark is trying to distance himself from Susan.
Yeah, she didn't like that. She wanted to work with Mark. That's who she'd worked with originally. So we're fast forwarding, it's 1989. And Susan's sister, her name is Shelby, they were living together at this time. I guess her and Kenneth couldn't live together anymore. Susan got out, lived with her sister. And it was 3 days her sister hadn't heard from her, which was very unusual, and her sister reports her missing. Now, the police investigate, but the police are also thinking, okay, this is a known informant. Maybe she just left town. Maybe she didn't want to be here anymore. All kinds of possibilities. They thought, well, maybe Cat Eyes or had somebody do something, he had somebody outside of the prison, do something. Of course, they question him. He's got a solid alibi. He is in prison. They question his girlfriend. She actually has a solid alibi. She was not even in Kentucky when the disappearance happened. She was visiting family, I believe, in Virginia. Okay, so the police are just sort of stumped. So they think maybe she just left on her own. Well, now Mark, he's back in Florida now with his family. But he eventually does have to come back to Kentucky to tie up some loose ends with that chop shop case. So, he came back to Kentucky, and they figured out when they were doing this research that he came back to Kentucky. He was in Florida. He came back to Kentucky for a little bit, and it was around the time that Susan went missing. So
when he was back in town.
So we fast forward another year to 1990. Susan, nobody's heard from her, nothing. So the FBI is like, okay, we're going to have to talk to Mark about this Susan Daniel Smith case. Like,
what is going on
what's
with
going
this?
on with that. It's weird. That was your FBI informant.
When nobody can find her, the only person that seems to care that she's missing is her sister, and she's making a stink about it, so we're going to have to question him. He was in the area.
He was in the area, so we got to question you. So, he tells them, he doesn't have anything to do with it. He agrees to take a polygraph. Well,
and, yeah, he fails that miserably.
So he fails the polygraph miserably. So after he fails, the first thing he does is he says, I want to call my wife. Of course, they let him. I guess he tells everything that's happened. So he basically lets his wife know, hey, I had an affair with this woman, and
She was an FBI informant.
She was an FBI informant. We had an affair. Things went haywire. She is now dead, which is not good. So now we know. So Mark has this information. He knows where Susan is. He knows where her body is. So he said, okay, I will tell you where she is, but I'm only going to serve 16 years in a federal prison, not a state prison.
Right. He had his terms laid out.
And he said, okay, I want 16 years, federal prison, no state prison, because being an FBI agent, or if you're a,
any kind of law enforcement,
you don't want to be in a state prison. And so he eventually told them where her body was. He stated that, they were having an affair. She claimed she was pregnant. She was going to have his kid. I think Susan was under this impression that maybe he really liked her. They could have their own family. Like, he would leave his wife and kids. And in that car, I guess he basically told her, no, that's not going to happen. And he strangled her and killed her.
Killed her.
Because of that.
And dumped her body in a ravine.
And, her body had laid there for a year and nobody knew. But he knew where it was. And so he set up that plea arrangement. And he ended up serving 10 years.
10 years, and was a model prisoner.
They said he was great with the guards. He helped out inmates, which, being from, a law enforcement background,
you're going to know how to play that game.
Definitely.
Right.
So I believe he only served 10 years out of that. He got out early.
And you just can't believe that somebody just could murder someone in cold blood, but because they are in the FBI, they are high-ranking law enforcement, that the punishment is not going to be the same as it is for an everyday citizen.
Which, being in law enforcement, having that type of background, I would almost think you should have a harsher punishment. Exactly. Because you know the law, you know what is wrong,
what is the wrong thing to do. And murder, I mean, what is worse than first degree murder, just killing someone? Because from what it sounds like, he planned it. He planned to take her out in the middle of nowhere to have this talk about them, but he knew he was going to get rid of her, go back to his family, and everything was just going to be fine and dandy for him.
And I do think some of it is a murder of passion. They did have a relationship. He did admit to that. And, he had a wife and kids, and he didn't want to have to explain, what he was doing.
Right.
But he obviously killed somebody, which is terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. So this case has been mentioned in a book before. It's called Above Suspicion. And it's also now a movie. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, yeah. I think you can rent it.
You can rent it.
It's not on the Amazon Prime for just free to watch, but you can rent it.
And if you're into investigation discovery, there are 2 episodes that I know of different shows. One is called The Perfect Suspect, and it's episode 2, season 1. And then there's another show called Betrayed, and it's season 1, episode 1. So if you have Discovery Plus, which I do, I love it. If you love true crime, I recommend getting Discovery Plus solely for the investigation discovery side of things. There's also other stuff. But if you're into true crime, very, very good. It's if you're into that kind of, that kind of thing.
And what makes this case a bit of a standout, the Mark Putnam FBI. He was the very first FBI agent ever to be convicted of murder. So that was kind of, pretty big deal when it happened.
I think he actually got convicted of manslaughter, so it got dropped down from a murder charge to a manslaughter charge because he basically had all the information and could make his own plea, which is unheard of.
Make his own plea and bargain with the information.
So that's our first case. I hope you like this video. We're very green at this right now.
Yeah,
so
we really like it though. We're wanting to continue doing this.
We do want to continue. If you have, cases from the tri-state area you would like us to cover, the Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, leave it in the comments below. Let us know what are the cases you want us to talk about. We may not have heard of them because in our area, when it comes to this tri-state area, a lot of these cases aren't, they're known, but they're not known, if you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. Like, it seems like it's just a culture in our area that stuff happens and nobody knows about it. Like, you have to go digging for the information because you will not see it on the local news.
Exactly. Like I said, we're interested in, the murder cases, disappearances, unsolved cases, even like the weird stuff that's happened around in our area. Let us know in the comments below what you want us to talk about. We would love to, do that in our upcoming videos. Hopefully you like this video. Let us know by giving us a thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate it. And also, since we're brand new, subscribe to our channel, please.
Yes,
it would help us out. Terror in the Tri-State. Subscribe, like, leave us comments. We would greatly appreciate it. And I think that's everything.
That's everything
for this episode.
So see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.